Earlier you said that if a charter school or a private school gets a dollar of federal aid, they have to follow all of the federal laws regarding discrimination. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. But those laws are somewhat foggy in that area, so I want to be absolutely clear about what you're saying. Are you saying that if you have a private school, private schools that generally set their own admission policies, that they will not be allowed under your program to discriminate against LGBTQ students?
Senator, I said it before and I'll say it again, that schools that receive federal funds must follow federal law.
And I just said federal law is foggy. So in your understanding of federal law, will such discrimination be allowed?
On areas where the law is unsettled, this department is not going to be issuing decrees.
So
that
please
is a matter
just
for,
answer the question.
That is a matter for
discrimination-
Congress and the courts.
Is discrimination going to be allowed or not allowed, under your understanding?
On areas of unsettled law,
Are you saying this
Congress
is such an area? So such
Congress and the
discrimination
Supreme
is allowed?
Court has to decide and settle. But
You're refusing to answer the question?
I'm going back to what I said earlier.
Well, what you said earlier didn't help us since it's an area of unsettled law, but I think you just said where it's unsettled, such discrimination will continue to be allowed under your program. If that's incorrect, please correct it for the record. How about discrimination based on religion? Will such discrimination be allowed with charter or private schools?
Again, for schools that receive federal funds, federal law must be followed.
What is that law in this case, to your understanding? Will such religious discrimination be allowed? Answer the question.
Schools that receive federal funds will follow federal law.
Okay,
period.
you're refusing to answer the question. I think that's very important for the public to know that today the Secretary of Education, before this committee, refused to affirm that she would put forward a program that would ban discrimination based on LGBTQ status of students, or would ban discrimination based on religion.
Sir, that's not what I said.
Well,
That is not what I said.
I've asked you to clarify, and you've refused to do so.
Discrimination in any form is wrong. I don't support discrimination in any form.
Does your program ban such discrimination? Yes or no?
What program are you talking about?
Your charter school and your private school grant program.
As I said before, and let me say it again, schools
Saying the
that
same thing
receive
10
federal
times
funds
when you're not answering the question
need to
does not
follow
help.
federal law, period.
Okay. Let's turn to your cost of college. You say that you want to reduce the burden of debt, but you've established a new program that is actually the same program. We have an income-driven repayment program, but you've made it more expensive. How does that help a student today pay for college if you simply take an existing program and make it more expensive? By $76 billion, I might add.
The proposal is to move to a 12.5% discretionary income-driven repayment plan. Actually, I saw an example of this the other day. It will sunset after 15 years versus 20, and it actually, in the end, ends up being less costly for students under the 15.
Let me point out that your budget takes $76 billion out of that program by raising it from a 10% to 12.5%. And doesn't it require additional years if you have a graduate student loan involved?
That's correct.
Isn't that 30 years?
30 years for
Thank
graduate
you.
students.
And
yes.
wouldn't it be better for a student to be able to do work-study in order to reduce the amount of debt that they have, but you cut in half the federal work-study program? Why not encourage students to be able to hold a job in college and reduce their debt rather than making them have a higher debt?
We are proposing reducing the work-study program, but not eliminating it.
Right, but do you see the logic of my point that a student, a low-income student, struggling with massive debt, wouldn't that person be better off being able to work in college and reduce their debt?
I think it's great for students to work in college, and work does not have to be limited to on-campus activity. That there's other opportunities, but the work-study program is targeted to undergraduate students, not to graduate school students.
Another thing that reduces or increases the amount of debt is that the Pell Grant proposal you put forward doesn't keep pace with, because you freeze it for that time period, doesn't keep pace with the inflation in public schools. So students go from having the Pell cover roughly 30% to covering only 25%. Doesn't that make it harder for America's students who are from working and struggling families to pay for college?
Well, we believe that having year-round options is going to help actually students get through school much more quickly if they choose to. And the Pell program is a very important program for students most in need.
would you like to re-propose a Pell program that does keep pace with inflation so that it covers the same percent for working families?
The Pell program I think the max award is $5,920. And it is an important program that has received priority funding in this budget. We want to continue to encourage those who are most vulnerable and the populations that are most in need of our support to pursue higher education. But I go back again to what I said earlier on a broader scale. We have to do a much better job of talking with students early on about their wide range of options.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator
My time
Merkley.
has expired, but let me just
Senator
note
Capito.
that the Secretary has
Time-
failed to answer
Senator
the question.
Merkley, your time has expired.